Hello, everyone, and welcome to Learn to Unlearn, a TLB special brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project. I'm here with my very special guest, co-host, TLB Media Director, and awesome mentor, Rebecca Mahan. And we're here today to discuss, that's right, guns. And the name of the show is exactly that, Guns, the Real Bullet Point. And I can hear that first question that people have would be like, why? Well, for a few very good reasons. Rebecca, for example, is a Life NRA member, and she's going to be very excited to tell us her credentials real soon. And she's also been flipping around, researching into legal papers and legal aspects of the topics and in different forms. We'll have links at the end of the show as well for you guys to check it all out. And I'm here with my own experience and my knowledge about firearms, and believe it or not, common sense and the responsibility that comes with owning one or more, just like the responsibility that parents have towards their children. Everything fits together, and this is why these two passionate and sensitive souls are here before you today with such an explosive, pardon the pun, topic. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Luca. I'm glad to be here.
I want to start the show with one question, okay? And this is always what I talk about when I speak about guns, okay? In this country, we have, we all know the meaning of the stop school bus in front of us. Sometimes, you know, equipped with those bright yellow barriers that are dropped across the road and the red flashing lights on when they let kids out. Who in their right mind would intentionally drive by the school bus in this case? Not too many, because most of us know the implications and what could potentially happen to the children involved, or what could happen to us when the school bus driver writes down our license plate number and reports us to the police. Rebecca, I know you got some comment you wanted to say on traffic as well that's really important.
I do. I think that we fail to realize that the laws that have been enacted in reference to traffic are for our safety. And so we forget that vehicles are also a weapon.
Exactly. Yeah, and you know, a broomstick is a weapon. A bat is a weapon. And the idea of the school bus is, I think, or should be exactly the same thing in the case of firearms of any type. Once they go to the owner's home, once they go inside the home, there's absolutely no difference. The level of responsibility is the same. And again, there's absolutely no excuse for accidents in this case. Absolutely none. There's no reason for it, and there's no excuse for them. Accidents do not happen. As we can see on this meme that I'm showing right now, accidents do not happen to well-trained adults or children. It's that simple. The level of respect towards the firearm is paramount. The knowledge of the potential danger is present in every situation. Everything about the topic needs to be taken to the most serious level possible. There are safety classes available to attend, to take online. There are tons of resources within reach to everybody 24/7. We believe that a lot of the problem lies in neglect and apathy and or disdain for human life and security. Exactly the same thing, again, happens with children. If you look at the example with children, when parents use them against one another as tools or weapons in arguments, in fights, or in court, as I have seen myself, personally. We also know that most of us, that all the hype about guns, the drug problem that will not go away, the war on drugs to be exact, the setups, the assassinations, etc., all done to give us the illusion of the horrific use of guns, and they're responsible for everything, and we've got to get rid of them. Most have been pushed on us by the CIA, and this we know.
I want to interject something real quick, Luca, if that's okay.
Yeah.
The concern that many people have is that, you know, if guns remain available to people to have in their homes and so on and so forth, there's going to be more crime. But having been in law enforcement, I have seen a number of criminals who have made their own weapons or have obtained the weapons illegally.
Mhm.
Gun owners that practice safe firearms safety
Mhm.
are responsible gun owners that take classes, they know the weapons, and register them, and not have intentions to go out and commit these horrific crimes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not about the people. Um, it's all about the illusion that the government wants to give us about guns and gun use and gun availability. And most of this was pushed on by the CIA. Like I was saying, JFK, RFK, MLK, Reagan, JFK Jr., and so many others to put a bad rap on guns and the use of them. It's a continuous push by government to make guns look like they're the problem. And that's why they want to end up taking them from us. Well, guns do not kill people. Another meme that I'm showing right now. Guns do not kill people. People kill people. Guns do not load by themselves. They do not go off by themselves. And Rebecca, I know you want to add something here because you're really familiar with the training and the resulting improper use of weapons too, right?
I am familiar with that. I'm very well versed in weaponry. And I will tell you that you are right. The gun will not go off by itself. Manufacturers of weapons, specifically firearms, rifles, and anything that falls under this category, obviously, they have, put into effect different safety mechanisms to prevent accidents from happening. And so if a weapon is dropped, the gun is not going to go off. They don't just go off. And ways that you can think about that is law enforcement carries weapons daily, right? They have them on their side. Some have weapons, in other areas to protect themselves or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
And they get in scuffles. They have high-speed pursuits, and they're moving around in the vehicle with the gun on their duty belt and in a small confined space, which is easily, able to catch on to something. There's a number of different events and calls for service that officers go on a daily basis, and the guns don't just go off. And if someone's going to say, well, it's in a holster, that's fine. But even if the weapon is taken out of the holster and dropped on the ground, it doesn't just go off.
No. A lot of this hype is just the work of our own government to make, those who do not think for themselves and who don't think, logically, that guns are the problem. Just like drugs are the problem, just like the drug wars that our own government started by dropping them off in minority neighborhoods of various cities, and the gun war that they started. People like Hillary Clinton are determined to make you think that we have to get them off the street and that they're the problem, and it's really not true. And I want to address that.
Let's go back to what you said about people killing people. So let's think about that just for a second. If you think about this, it is the person that picks up the gun. It is the person that picks up the knife. It's the person that picks up a pipe and uses it in a harmful manner.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were talking earlier about being responsible and practicing safe techniques, I definitely want to get into this conversation about safety for children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're getting into that too, because that's in many links that we have at the end of the show as well. Rebecca gives us a lot of insight as far as, safety rules and what to look for, the 14 things you should know about gun ownership before you have guns in your possession, And as I was saying, there's so many training manuals as well. And it just, you know, accidents do not happen, especially with something that dangerous. So, you know, there are people who literally say that once all people are armed, the violence would stop. Others claim that an armed society is a polite society. And a prime example of that is Switzerland. Switzerland, where 45.7% of the people, that's 45.7 people out of 100 people, that's practically half of them. They have arms, they have at least one arm or one weapon in their home. In Switzerland, they enjoy some of the lowest crime rates in the world. The Second Amendment here in the United States, in this country, clearly shows us that when government is tyrannical, when our government is tyrannical, or when tyranny becomes law, then rebellion becomes duty. So many quotes have been cited by so many people. My favorite says that all tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent and remain ignorant. And I love that, those quotes about Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. Or he says, the Constitution is not an instrument for the government to restrain the people. It's an instrument for the people to restrain the government when need be, lest it come to dominate our lives and interests. And I like to think of government as a parent and the children as the population. And in this case, the general population. And it's pretty obvious now that after so long of being asleep, I like to say, people are really waking up. And they're coming out of their slumber. They're realizing the damage that our government has done to us, we the people, and they attempt to take their lives back, as they should. Out of 265 million guns in America, we see that the majority of them are in responsible and training hands. Rebecca, you must have something to add on that because of the NRA and, you know, the experience you have with them.
Well, as I was saying earlier, the responsible gun owners register their guns. They become familiar with them. They know how to use them, how to keep them stored in their home safely. And there is just a sense of responsibility, period.
Yeah. You come from a military family too. You have a history in the Marine Corps. You're also a retired police officer. That's pretty amazing stuff. I mean, that's really talking about responsible gun ownership. It really is. That's remarkable. And
thank you.
We started to talk about this, her and I, not even 2 days ago, and we said to ourselves, we got to do a show on this. And this may frighten or surprise a lot of people, but when I had my 40 caliber Smith & Wesson, when it opens, you know, when you open the door to the house, you know that your gun is not loaded. This thing about one left in the chamber is total nonsense. It's called clearing the gun, and Rebecca knows about clearing the gun and what that means. Even if somebody clears a gun before they give it to you, you clear it yourself when you have it in your possession or when you're holding it. It's the common sense things that people have to realize so that when the gun enters the home, it's no more dangerous than a cup. It's no more dangerous than a pen. And the 9-year-old kid sitting on the couch can play with it. When he understands the responsibility, when he understands the respect that he has to have for it, not as a toy, but in my case, that's what actually happened. The child was with the parent right next to me saying, you know, I really would like to look at that. And, you know, I mean, you know, the gun's not loaded. You know, there's absolutely no more difference than a broomstick or a baseball bat. It's the best way to teach kids the responsibility and the respect that they need to understand at a young age towards firearms. Rebecca?
Well, you've said some really key points here, and I want to really just share that children are curious. They're curious about everything, whether it's a weapon or a knife. And as a parent or as a guardian, a caregiver, whatever, we have a responsibility to make sure that our children are safe. Whoever it is that is in our presence is safe. And so that means you don't leave things laying out that are going to harm someone. You put them away. So a gun should not be just lying around, whether it's cleared or not. But if a child is at an age where they are curious about things, it's important to allow them to know what it is. And yes, you're in their presence, and let them, ask their questions. At the same time, teaching them the safety and the responsibility that is necessary for something of this caliber.
Yeah, and it's a really good point to stress, because again, when the gun does not, it sounds so stupid to say that. I can't believe I'm even saying this, but when the gun does not have a bullet in it, when it's cleared, when it enters the home, you know that it's not dangerous. It's like anything else, and I find it so incredible when you hear stories about the 6-year-old girl that shoots her 4-year-old brother with a loaded gun. People like that shouldn't even have children. People like that shouldn't even be allowed to have a firearm. These are the things that should be really, really restricted and very, very strictly enforced, I think.
Well, there's a lot of laws, Luca, on the books and that indicate a certain responsibility or consequence based on those types of things. Now, one of the best things a parent can do, or someone that has a child in their house, is to make sure that the weapon is unloaded, of course, out of reach of the child. And there are some, I believe in California, that if a child does get a hold of a weapon, even if it's had been in a secured location, then you are responsible for that. However, there is an organization called Child Safe, and they provide gun locks for free to anyone. In fact, the initiative is so big that they will ship them out free to local law enforcement agencies, and a lot of times they're just right there at the station, and you can go in and obtain one. Now, there's a flip side to this, because those who are huge advocates of home safety and personal safety say, well, I need to have my gun accessible and ready to go in the event that, someone enters the house. Well, both sides are very valid to this. You have a child in the home, and you do need to be safe. So those who are trained in firearms do know that you have to practice with your weapon, handling it, loading it, and all of these things. Law enforcement is tested on speed and such. And a person who is at home can do that as well, and that is having it in a place that is accessible to you and keeping it locked, but practicing knowing where your key is that is not accessible to a child, and getting to, insert the key in the lock, get it out, and get it loaded. That, is something that can be practiced. And on both sides of the coin, you're doing the right thing. You're practicing safe gun ownership in your home, and you're also being able to be prepared in the event that you need to protect yourself in your castle. This is super important. Now, I will say, Luca, there's a lot of people out there that have seen so many things that have been displayed in the media, and a lot of times only the negative is portrayed, right? And so there's a huge fear surrounding guns, like, oh gosh, I don't want to touch it. Even if I know it's empty, I'm afraid it's going to go off. And it's really important for people to overcome that fear, because there's two things here to think about. If you have a child in your home, if you're not teaching that child about gun safety and they go over to a friend's house, who's going to teach them then? So even if you yourself do not want to have a gun in your home, that's fine. But familiarize yourself and be comfortable enough to answer the curiosity in the children that you have. It's super important. But I do think that, you know, it is our right to have a weapon in our home, and we should be able to protect ourselves. There's a number of media instances where there has been recent cases of people who have ended up stopping the threat, the perpetrator that has come into the home to burglarize them, which is a huge issue. And they've saved their own life, or the life thereof those who have been in their home. And so that shows you that a responsible gun owner was protecting themselves. And you don't know what the intention of someone is when they're coming into their home. There's just so much surrounding this issue, and I do understand both sides of the coin. But another issue in reference to constitutionality is that once we begin changing the Constitution, a lot of our rights go away.
Right, and that's what government is trying to do now.
And we don't want that. We do not want the erosion of our rights.
Some are even saying that our Constitution doesn't exist anymore, and that the United States is just a corporation. But that's another show. But I'm really glad that you bring up that point, because I, as a gun owner, went through that. The difficulties of keeping the gun away from the child, and also knowing where it is to be able to access it fast enough in case something does happen. I'm really glad you brought that up.
Super important.
Yes, and this brings us to a very, very, very good point as well before we end the show. Knowing your gun, knowing your weapon, knowing the stats, knowing different parts of it, knowing what abbreviations mean. And guess what? AR does not mean assault rifle, okay? Find out what it means, you know? Find out the difference between semi-automatic and fully automatic. Find out the difference between a clip and a magazine. These are the things that you get to know when you have the respect for, and you accept the responsibility for, a weapon coming in your home. And again, better yet, go and visit the sites that Rebecca has compiled for us, that we're going to show while we end this show in the part at the end of it, which is going to be very soon, because we don't want to make this too long. Rebecca, any last words?
Yes, I want to say something here, and that is for anyone who is against guns. The question I have is to be fully equipped to make a decision about your stance on them. Have you familiarized yourself and educated yourself enough to make a decision? Because no matter what you decide, to have a gun, not to have a gun, to be pro-gun or against it, to be educated enough to make that decision, you have to familiarize yourself with that topic, regardless of whatever it is. And in this instance, it's on guns.
Yeah, and there are people that are traumatized indeed by weapons, because either they're coming out of war-ravaged countries, or they have problems with horrific stories of their own family going through things like that. A lot of people have their own reasons to be against guns, but the idea here in this country is that, unfortunately, we live in a country where government is really being tyrannical, and more people are being aware of that. And some even say that the reason why nothing has been done as far as FEMA camps, or as far as arresting people or putting them in concentration camps of the day, is because they know that there are so many guns in the hands of responsible and also veterans, which they trained people. So there's a lot to think about, and more people are thinking about their own safety, their own personal responsibility for their life and their sovereignty as a human being. Rebecca, thank you so much for being on the show. It's a real pleasure doing this, and I keep telling her we should do more shows more often together, because we, you know, two birds of a feather definitely stick together. And I want to also thank Rebecca for the work that she's doing for the Liberty Beacon Project on the show, and to train the new hosts coming in, the endless string of attentions that have to be brought to so many things. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. And we also want to thank Roger Landry and Ralph Eli as well. And I'm going to even thank Greg, Frank Gregory Ford on this show.
Yes.
For, you know, for everything that everybody's doing to make the Liberty Beacon Project work and continue to work, and to give truth to the people, which is so desperately needed today. Thank you so much. You have a good day, Rebecca. Thank you.
You as well. Thank you so much, Luca.